So here we are. Welcome to Transaction Review Calculator Practice, February 2017. I have a little bit of a practice session that I do at the beginning, as per usual, and then Kyoko, one of our members that I think you guys recognized her name by now, is going to just share her experiences with the group, which I think will be very valuable when it comes to how do you handle BK and all of that. So Kyoko, thank you so much for your time in preparing and showing up here and being so generous with your experience. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, standard disclaimer, this is just my opinion only. You should always seek your own legal and accounting advice for anything you hear. All right, so this is a deal. I always like to just say, hey, what have I been dealing with in the last week or so that I can just, keep fresh. And so this is a note that came to me through my website, so this is just the story of how that went. And it doesn't look like I'm going to buy this note, but I think it's a great story. So about 13 months ago. Yeah, 13 months ago. So two sisters inherited this house on 19 acres in a small town in Texas. It's rural. There's only about 4,000 people in the town. I can't remember how far out of San Antonio it is. But so, the population right there is an issue that's different than, quoting on something, that has at least 35,000 people where there's a reasonable sort of resale market. And then you also have, the acreage, it can be hard to figure out value. So that's just sort of a preamble to what we're going to be talking about. And so the down payment was nice. So when they inherited the house, they ended up having it on the market, and the person that wanted to buy it is the next door neighbor. They had a contiguous parcel. They wanted to acquire this because it was right next to their acreage already, and they were willing to put $35,000 down, which is 21%. That's very respectable. Sale price was $170,000, $35,000 down. So what we had is a first note and deed of trust for $135,000. So there's 21% protective equity on top of the note. And what they were willing to do, because they got their price and because they didn't have to hang out a long time, here's how they had structured this deal. So the borrower only wanted to pay $450 a month. They gave her a 0% interest loan. But it's only for 2 years, and then they have to pay it off. So in 2 years, the balloon due is going to be $124,200. They've made 13 payments so far, so that leaves obviously 11. So as part of the practice, what I was going to do is just follow along here. And so let's just recreate this note, right? So we had $135,000 here, $450 payment, which we'll see is kind of a negative. Well, it's not negatively amortizing because it's a 0%, right? They got 0%. It would be a great deal if you were buying it, right? Especially if $170 was a good price, which I think it was. And 24 months. So now we're trying to solve for what's the future value. What will the balloon be if it goes full term? And obviously it's just knocking down principal every month. So basically, the first thing I do before I calculate yield, he's trying to sell it. There's only 11 months left to go before the balloon. And I guess what they had done is talk to both sisters. Didn't need cash in the beginning, but now both of them need cash for various reasons, so they don't want to wait even the extra 10 or 11 months. And they had asked about 2 or 3 months ago if the borrowers would just pay them off as a favor, and of course, there's really no motivation for them to do that because they have a nice 0% loan here, right? So, they didn't offer them a discount or anything like that, just asked them if they'd pay it off. They said no. We don't want to do that until we have to. So then they were shopping it around, and that's how I came on top contact with them. So basically, but before I even calculate yield, I'm going to go, if this, I'm assuming this is a fair market value of the property, maybe even a little less, because they didn't have to pay realtors, I don't think, in this transaction, so they probably knocked it down a little bit. So I'm going to just figure what's my maximum ITV, investment to value, because I want my safety, right? I want to be below here. I want lots of protective equity on top of me. So I already know, so I'm going to take the lower of my max ITV or the minimum yield that makes sense for me. So in this case, I just know that that's the most that I'm going to pay for this note, 110.5. So let's just see if the yield makes sense at that. So I know there's 11 payments left. Okay, so I know that the balloon is that I'm going to get 11 payments of this, and 11 months from now, I'm going to get that lump sum. So I'm solving for this. So that's where I get 17.5. And for this deal, considering I think that's great, that all works for me. That number worked for them. So they said, yeah, let's go for it. And then that's when I realized how hard it was going to be for me to establish value. So
and why was it so hard? Because the town is
so I started
has minimum people.
Yeah, so because it's a small population and it's rural with acreage, and so when I was starting to call around for BPOs and talk to local realtors there, they said, you know, even us who live here, I'd have to go actually on the property and walk it and get permission to go inside of the house that's on the property before I could really tell you. And I said, okay, well, that means we're going to have to get permission from the, the owner, who's the borrower on the note. And in that case, I said, if they're going to cooperate, I just went, anyway, I'll get back to this later. But so I just realized it was going to be tough. And it doesn't mean I wouldn't do it. It's just that, it's just if they're going to have to cooperate anyway, it makes sense. Like if you were the borrower and you knew the note was going to be sold and someone had offered 110, you'd kind of want the first, if you were the one owning the property, wouldn't you want the first right of refusal to have, to get that discount? So, so I just said, look, they're going to have to cooperate either way. Why don't you just go to them and see if they'll match what I'm willing to pay, because if they will, then it's really a win for both sides. So the person who owns it gets to own the property, gets a discount on owning the property for paying it off just 11 months early, and then the sellers, they just get a really easy downstream, low closing cost sort of note, right, transaction. So it actually is the best for everyone. Okay, I maybe don't get this note deal, but there's other deals. So that's what actually ended up happening. I said, look, here's what you should do, because you should just go say, hey, I've got an offer on the table for 110.5. If you can match it, you can have it. And they said, okay, we'll take it. So that's a really excellent thing to do. And I think most people, they could have said, no, I can't pay it off right now, or I won't pay it off right now. And if they did, then it's, they'd hopefully be willing to cooperate with the sale of the note. But I just think that borrowers and note holders should work together. It makes a lot of sense to help each other first. And then if that doesn't work, then, go to someone else. Go to a third party like myself or other note buyers. So anyhow, so even though that's a 17.5% yield, one of the things I wanted to bring up is, it's that present, is it worth my time to do it? Now, because the yield, if you only go by yield, sometimes you could be led astray if you really want to do the deal. So I want to know, is it still going to be worth my time to do this if I buy it? So I'm going to go over here to this shift, go to amortization, and of course this spits out the whole note. You can see that based on the 450 payment and the yield that I bought it at, you can see that just the way the numbers work, that it looks negatively amortizing. It's not really a negatively amortizing loan. It's just because I bought it at a discount and it's 0%. That's kind of how it works out. So, but I can go, well, I'm going to have 100 and something tied up for 11 months, but still I'm making a fair amount of interest, right? So 18,000 in less than a year with very little risk. And so I think it still makes sense. But I always look at it. After I look at the yield, I go, okay, for the amount of time that my money's going to be tied up, is it still worth to do it? Not just looking at the yield. Any thoughts on that from anyone? Comments? Other investors? Ken?
No, I think it's a good thought process to do that, to look at it that way. So I think you're doing the right thing, and I still think 17%, and it's a short period of time too. So I think it's good.
Yeah, right. But I've had some times where I go, oh, it looks like a really good yield, like 19% or 21%, but the way it worked out, it was only like $5,000 over 3 years or something ridiculous like that. So I just kind of double check to go, those are just the thought process I go through. And so basically, what is what is their unpaid balance? So that's another practice point I wanted to do. So let's recreate this note super fast.
I'm going to have to leave, Tom, but thank you so much for the time so far, Ken. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so if I want to know what's the balance on this note, then I go, well, this is how many our payments are left, but they've made 13 payments. So here again, I want to know, after 13 payments, what's the balance of the note? So that's how I got the 129,150, is just calculating for future value once again. So basically, what are they getting it for? Let me go to the next slide. Which is the next slide? Is it this one? Okay, great. So that's the total interest. Oh, you made me a lot of slides, Axel. Okay. But anyway, so, what I wanted to show is if I'm going to turn this to a positive number, and they pay the 110,500, basically they're going to get 18,650, right? They're going to get 18,650 off the note, so that's a good return for them, right? To save almost $19,000 on the purchase of their house. That's really fantastic. And then here's the deal. If I could get, so then I go, well, okay, the deal makes sense, but can I make money putting this deal together? And I know that I can't charge somebody else more than 110.5. Why? I can't charge any money up front, right? I can't make any money on the front end of this, right? Why is that? Any guesses? Because my max ITV is there for safety. So I can't bring in an investor and ask them to go higher than the 65%. That's just my policy. So there's no money on the front end, right? And there's really not much money. They've got to get this whole 450, right? That's already a negatively amortizing situation like we saw, right? Theoretically speaking, it's just numbers, right? So the only way for me to make money is on the backside when the balloon pays off. Okay, so this is one of those deals where if I'm willing to wait, I can put this together and it'll just be on the backside. So let's just say we have the 124.2, which was the balloon if they pay off exactly, when it's called for. And we know there's 11 payments left. And so I want to know.
I always thought about this because I was faced with zero negative interest rates before in a couple of deals. Do you know? I know you have a choice. They have a choice. The person can refinance to pay you off, or if they can't refinance, I know some people refinance themselves, the note holder. So what did you consider with this deal?
Well, they have, the person paying on the note has no obligation to pay off their nice 0% loan sooner than they need to, right? Contractually, they have 11 months before the maturity date of the note.
So after 11 months, if they couldn't refinance,
then that's called default, right? So then you're either going to foreclose, do a modification, or whatever, right?
okay.
They'll either. So I'm just betting based on the 21% down payment and the fact that they own contiguous property that they're very low. There's low motivation for them to default, right? So, but anyway, so going back, does that answer your question, Kyoko?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So now let's just say, and I could put in 8 or 9% would be common for my investors on a deal like this, provided, I could prove that the collateral is worth 170 or more. So what would they need? I know this is the most I can have my investor bring is 110,500 because that's 65%, and I want them to be safe. I can't ask them to pay more because I don't like that. They're going to keep all this because it's a low payment anyway. So basically, I got to figure out at the end of the deal if, what's left for me. So I plug in these 4 numbers, and now I need to solve for future value. So if my investor puts in 110.5 now, keeps all of the payment, how much of the balloon will they need to get 8% yield? Okay, they'll only need, basically call it 114. So what is there left at the end if this pays off exactly as agreed? I'll owe my investor 114. So there's a little over $10,000 in change, right? Is what my profit is in putting this deal together. And is that worth it? Is that a good deal for me?
For you, yes.
Yeah, it's for me, great.
But
so
for the investor,
well, it just depends. Now you're an active investor. How about someone who their option is a 0% at the bank, right? So there's a lot of people that are happy at 8 and 9%. Active investors, no, but passive investors are really there's a lot of people borrowing money at 6 and 7% because so 6 to 10% is pretty good rate for passive investors. So if it was 9%, I'd owe closer to 115 if I paid them 10%. So someone who is going to let their money sit in the bank and not make anything, is this a good deal for them?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're doing something else with their life. They're not looking to be an active investor and find the deals and figure out how it works. They just want someone else to work with it and give them something back. So, active
Absolutely.
investors, you have no limit on what you can do, but passive investors are looking at usually 6 to 10% if you're staying pretty conservative with
more than the bank.
Yeah, it's gosh, more than 10 times what the bank's going to pay you, right? Maybe 20 times.
Exactly.
So even if it's a 10% yield, you can see that it's still going to be worth my time to put the deal together. So here's, so this is just, the exercises I go through. So yeah, that's still worth it for me. I don't know if I'll get, but I'm not going to get paid till my investor gets paid, right? So if there's profit,
Correct.
I'm going to take it at the end. So a lot of times when people are thinking of brokering a note, they're like saying, hey, I just want my 2,000 to 5,000 or, my whatever their fee they want, and I want to get paid up front and I want to go away. In this situation, you can see if you will stay in the deal, there's plenty of money to be made, but you can't do it without at front without compromising your investor. So I thought that, like I said, I ended up just encouraging the borrower and the note holder to work together, and that looks like it's what it's going to be. They'll just treat me as a backup offer. So, and anyway, any comments on that? Kathy, you can type at least. Chris and Susan, I don't know, where do you guys, what are your comments? You guys have been doing some investing too. So
I think it's a win situation for everybody. It's good for you, it's good for a past investor, and it's good for the two ladies that want to get some cash out of it. It's a win situation.
Yeah, anything I hadn't thought of or things that you would think of, would you do the deal, wouldn't you do it? What would you expect? Just good to get everyone's opinion.
The property. You'd have to verify the value of that property. So
Exactly.
the person in owning the property right now would have to allow you to, like the realtor said, to get in there.
Get in there, look at the house, and make sure it was verified, and then it's a good deal.
Exactly. So everything hinged on the value of the collateral, right? And so and that's where my biggest problem was going to be, because you cannot do this online at all. And like I said, even the realtors who worked that area said, "Hey, we wouldn't even be able to tell you until we walked through." And so that just tells you that it could have been a great deal.
Dawn, it sounds like an area where my sister lives, and like there's just no way. There's no comparables. There's not enough housing. That's like there's only like 1,100 people in the area, and
Yeah.
there's like it just runs the gamut from everything. So there's nothing that compares to anything, and so it's
Right.
really hard.
Yeah, and so the person that has the most vested interest is the owner, right? The borrower, the one paying on the note. They're the ones that are sure of the value to them. If I have to foreclose on this, and it's a town of like 4,000 people, that's not, it has a different value to me than it has to them, because it's right next to their property. So
Right.
you
It has
have
more
to
value to them because it's right next to their piece of property.
Right, and then they put a healthy down payment, and they've been building equity, $450 a month, straight principal reduction the whole time. So things stacked well, but I'm really glad. I think this is a good deal for both of the seller and the buyer. They both walk away with a better deal. But if I could get a firm idea of the 170 appraisal, then it would have been sensible to pull the trigger, relatively short term, and make a few bucks, So
But it was nice of you to set that up for the holder of the note and the people that bought the property, to think of them first and see if it would work out better for them. So that's really honorable of you to do that.
Well, thank you for saying it, and it's also very practical because it's downstream. It's working with getting everyone on board more Aikido style than a karate chop. So it's like, hey, because I'm going to need them to cooperate no matter what. So I don't want to be working upstream against what is the highest and best for all parties. And you guys know this, have been following me and in my world. I mean, seriously, I don't lose anything. I did not lose this deal because there's no such thing. Because if this doesn't come back to me, it comes back to me from some other way. It's just part of the karmic wheel of it all. And I think if you operate like that, you really come out ahead. And, there's enough to go around. Usually. Now, we all know that there's problems in the note business. Right? There's
Yes.
for the yield that you make, sometimes there's hiccups and headaches and things like that. So, all right. So, Kyoka, let's switch over to you. And you were so gracious to come on and share, as part of our community, share your individual experience with the rest of our members, because you have gotten yourself into the note business. Just take the bull by the horns. You were in real estate and had your portfolio rentals and all those types of things, and you said, hey, I want to do the note business, and you went from looking at performing, and then started looking at non-performing loans, and then you have experience that's really valuable that you can share with us, because a lot of times when note investors are looking at things, if it's got a lot of hair on it, meaning something complicated and scary like bankruptcies, it makes people nervous, but you've discovered that you are really knocking it out of the park by being willing to educate yourself and about the bankruptcy process, and is actually, through your story, we'll see how you are making fantastic progress and profits, just through the bankruptcy trustee and how that all works, right?
Yeah.
So tell people a little bit about, your process in getting to the point where you took down this deal, like you're looking online and you're evaluating. Can you just give us a little window? Like, where'd you find this note, and what made you finally decide to pull the trigger and get this one in your portfolio?
I saw this note on FCI, and I looked at several notes, but there's a lot of junk in here when it comes to dealing with FCI. They will tell you anything, and once you get into the process, it's not what they say it is, and things that is not expected. You find unanticipated issues, and you end up not doing the deal. But in this case, I kind of went through the same process, and I decided to leave it alone, but then it was still there. I had never, told the person, I'm not doing this, and I never, ended the transaction. So things were going on, and once they told me more information, I was like, this is still here. Let me look into this further. And I went to look into it further. I first seen MERS on the loan, and MERS is always a scary thing to see on any loan, because it came in before, was a part of the housing bubble. And
Right.
A lot of things went on with mortgage-backed securities, so that always scares me when you see that. But once I started looking further into it and looked at assignments, I didn't see anything that were out of place. And I had a few conversations with lawyers.
Meaning that the paperwork looked like you had a note and deed of trust that was properly recorded. Then you saw a sensible and logical chain of assignments from one
Exactly.
to another. So there was nothing missing. Did you also have allonges for the notes that went with it, or not?
Yes, I did.
So both assignments and allonges matched up.
Yes, they did, but it was kind of weird because it weren't that many assignments. It was assigned and reassigned twice within the same company, kind of reassigned to a different department, assigned to residential fund 118, then reassigned to a different fund, but it was still a residential fund.
Gotcha.
So that was interesting too. They didn't have really that many assignments, and one of them was within the same company.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's good. It hadn't been sold too many times. That makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. So then after noticing that, I started to get more interested in looking into the bankruptcy, and it was kind of a weird ordeal because nothing was known about the bankruptcy. The company that sold me the note had purchased it in, let's say, January of 2014, and it immediately went into bankruptcy in March of 2014. So
we're talking
that's
3
kind of
years ago. 3 years ago, they bought this note.
Yes.
And it went into bankruptcy, and they didn't know a thing about it when they were selling it to you?
They didn't know much because being that a short window of 2 months, they don't have a lot of information. Like when you ask the questions, I have a questionnaire that I send out. And a part of that questionnaire is that, your last conversation with the borrower, just a lot of questions about the borrower. But a lot of those answers were I don't know. They couldn't talk. You can't talk to a client after they file bankruptcy.
Right,
You
right.
just don't supposed to call them and attempt any collection activities. So it's kind of like none involved. They didn't really have a lot of answers to it. So
Right.
that part stopped me a little bit. And I digged in further, and once I realized that it was on the cusp of starting payments, I started to follow that. And the first payment actually came in while I was in due diligence. And so that was like a huge eye-opener.
Okay,
Things
so
are
that's
starting.
awesome. So you started this as buying it as a non-performing note, not a re-performing note. So you got non-performing pricing on something that's turned out to be a re-performer, not a non-performer.
Correct.
So that was really auspicious timing.
Yes, it was great. Once I noticed that came in November, and I was still within the process, I was like, wow, it was a huge eye opener. Like, this is starting to happen.
And you didn't
So,
even have to you didn't even have to take it into portfolio and spend a year getting it to perform again or whatever.
Exactly, because it's obvious that the previous lender had to spend that amount of time to get it there. Like they started in 2014, and I got it in the end of 2016, so that's like a 2-year window.
Yeah, almost 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then did that payment come through the bankruptcy trustee?
Yes, I mean the way bankruptcy works, and I think I had this conversation with one of the members on a call with you. Like they were arguing that they were stating that the trustee paid everything. And I know in Georgia, I mean I think you can get it that way, but it's not in the best advantage of the person that's going through the bankruptcy, because I think you have to actually pay a trustee. So why would you pay them to do something you can do on your own? I mean, arrears, that's kind of like an automatic thing. But if you want them to pay your current mortgage plus your arrears, then why would you pay someone else to do that if you didn't really have to? So I didn't understand that, but I guess maybe certain states are different. That's why I told Act 2 when we first started discussing this. It was certain titles he was trying to put. I was like, I don't think you should put this like this is a how-to. It's not really a how-to because bankruptcies are specific per state.
Yeah, so
somebody might someone else can tell you a whole different, sort of the same. I'm sure there's generalities, but at the same time, there are certain specific things to a certain state.
Right. So this was in a BK 13, a restructuring. Correct. Right? And so what you're saying is, it probably varies a bit from state to state. So you're not saying, hey, this is a how-to for everything across the country, but your experiences, and I've heard other people say that they actually like it when it's in BK 13 because then the payment is being usually coming through the trustee and sort of guaranteed through them, or there's some sort of a neutral third party that's kind of making sure that the loan is getting paid, and if it doesn't, there's certain consequences that are automatic in place from that. So it sounds like it really turned into a positive thing for you. And they had modified this, just to go back. I mean, the original loan balance I'm seeing on this slide is $154,000. That was the balance. They did a loan mod just before you bought it, or how long?
Yeah. A year, 2 years, I think. Let's see, let me pull up the same note. They did a loan mod in 2013.
Oh, so
where is it?
No, that doesn't make sense because that was before the other company even bought it, right?
Let's see, I thought I wrote it down. I have the number that they did.
Well, if it's a 30-year loan mod and the maturity date's 2043, then 2013 would be, I guess, when they did the loan mod. But even then, they went in default after the loan mod. Looks like they wrote it down from $60,000. They took off the principal balance, and they were still in default for 2-3 years almost. But then, by the time you were had made an offer on it, they were starting to make payments through that's a long time, 2.5 years.
I started the process. I think I may have started the process in maybe like the end of October 20-something, or maybe November 1st, but it was prior to the payment. Because I remember thinking like, if I'd have hurried up, if I wasn't, so lax, and at first I changed my mind about doing the whole deal, maybe I could have got the November payment. That's always in the back of your mind.
Yeah, you're jonesing for that yield, that's for sure. So so let's go to this next slide. So basically, here's a Chapter 13 bankruptcy summary. Filed it in March of 2014. Motion for reliefs happened almost more than 2 years later.
But this is, you got to realize, it went through, this is a kind of weird ordeal because, for one, the person that sold me the loan, they never had an assignment done. So it's kind of weird. I believe they were able to do this because they're both under the FCI umbrella, because they came from Residential Fund 350 and then to Private Lender Services and Private Lender Services to me. But everything that you would really see is from Residential Fund.
So where's the that entity you just named, Private Residential Lending?
Lender Services.
Were they
Private
just
Lender
acting
Services.
maybe they were just acting as a broker, you think?
No, I know they weren't. They have an assignment, but they never filed it. So
Well,
I filed it.
So then so you made sure that got recorded before the assignment
Yes.
from you, right?
Yes. So I filed their assignment along with mine.
Huh, that's interesting.
I had the and I was wondering, like, why do you do this? But then, I talked to a lot of people, and that was advice way first when I got involved in this, was make sure you talk to a lot of people. And I do. And I realized there are people that buy loans in pools, and it takes time to get around to certain ones. And maybe there was just the time for this one. It came up for them to really start dealing with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal just to manage a small portfolio of maybe 100 notes or something. That's huge.
Yeah.
But
So
if you talk about hundreds of thousands of loans, that is a lot of work.
Exactly. So it's just on the list, and you haven't dealt with it yet, but you have everything in place. Like, I had the assignment, and it was dated correctly. I mean, everything was fine about it. It was notarized and everything. All I had to do was really turn it in with mine.
Yeah,
they have it assigned. They have it recorded.
Right, proper order. So talk to me about how much time you are really an active investor, and I think just a little bit ago we were talking about passive investor yields versus active investor yields. How much time do you think you're spending finding the deals and the due diligence and then managing it? Just give me a ballpark number. How much of your time are you investing into this undertaking?
It's not as quick as I would like, because it's like every situation poses a new circumstance that I probably is not that up to speed on, and I have to research it. So if I'm allowed to do that, then I guess anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. So how many hours for you to get to the point between starting to look for this deal and now, how many hours do you think you have into it?
How many hours? That I probably can't put my hand on. How many hours? Because it's like, really, it's not that until I look through FCI, I look through Loan MLS, I speak with certain brokers that I deal with, to find certain deals. I would love if I can get all my deals from a broker, because it's less headache then, and a certain degree of due diligence has been done on it before they even accept it. So that's how I would love to get all my deals. And it's kind of like no headache type stuff. It's kind of like serious from like day one when you're offered, a loan. But with FCI, it's a totally different ball game, and you just have to invest a lot of time when you're looking for it.
Yeah, it is a lot of time.
You don't know who you're dealing with.
Right. So what I want to say is, when people go, oh, I want to do non-performing notes and I want to find my own deals, like you're saying, hey, I would love to have a broker just serve it up to me on a dish with everything all orderly, but then either, the due diligence isn't done as well as you would like, or the pricing or the yield or profit potential isn't as juicy as you would like. So what you're doing is, instead of just saying, hey, I'm okay with, the 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, 12 as a passive investor, you're like, hey, no, I want to spend time. So that's what I want to just make the point of active investor yields can be a lot higher, and you're spending a lot more time, and you're really getting into it. This is part
you definitely are.
Several hours of looking and talking to people and due diligence.
Yes.
All of that. It's a lot more work, and it's worth it, right? What do you get?
Extremely more. I think it's worth it, but you probably want to take a little relief. After the deal is done and you wired the money, you're going to take a huge relief because you spent a lot of time investing into a deal like this. For one, you're dealing with a person, and then you're dealing with entities. You're dealing with a person that's really not being honest with you. I have made it to closing several times where I had to pull out and close the deal when my money was there.
Right, your money's there, but so you're saying that you can't always trust brokers and note sellers to tell you the truth, straight up.
Straight up. Look, straight up. Better when you're dealing with a broker, because that's like the window between you and the seller.
Right.
And they have already gotten a lot of information, and they can just tell it to you, and they've gotten, the results of that. With whatever they're requesting, they have. And then when you request it, they give it to you automatically. But when you're dealing with a seller that you can't see, and you're only emailing through FCI, and that you are not allowed to like verbally communicate with, then it's a different ordeal. It's a different ordeal.
Okay, so there you're making the distinction. If you have a good broker who's been in the business and they know what they're doing, they're going to have a lot better quality of information for you assembled. But if you're just going off to FCI or some other exchange where it's only email, you're saying you don't trust anything they say until you verify it for yourself.
Correct.
Yeah,
absolutely correct.
I've heard a lot of people, get really burned. So it's not like it's not a great pursuit, but you just have to beware and take the time to educate yourself, and then you pull the trigger, right? And then you see how it works out. So let's just go over. We'll just spend a few minutes here just going over your yield on this, your potential yield if the mod sticks and she makes it through the BK13. Do you have an idea of any stats on the number of people that complete the BK13?
Excuse me, repeat that, please.
The statistics of how many people actually finish the BK13, they complete their payments.
No.
Yeah, I've heard that it can be kind of low, but it's a great start. But let's just assume.
I have a friend that's in this business a lot, and he explained a lot of this to me, and the percentage is mostly low. Because people just, people file just to stop things, to stop activities. And if that's your initial thought and what you were doing, then it's going to stop it for a certain amount of time. But once you don't complete it correctly, then all that stuff is going to come back.
Gotcha. So let's run this two ways. I think on this slide we have that the payments are $406 a month?
From the trustee.
From the trustee. And then is the regular payment also coming from the trustee, or is this the sum total?
No, it's coming from the borrower.
And how much is coming from the borrower?
His mortgage is $592.18, but he generally pays $594. I don't know where he gets that number for, but he's been paying it for a long time.
So the trustee is handling the arrearages, and you're getting $406 from the trustee. How long is that going to ride?
Until the whole $13,466 is paid out.
Right. Do you know how many months is that? If it goes.
I had a number.
I guess I can do that. It was 13,451.
33 months.
And they're going to pay 406.
But
I wonder what the yield is at. So do you know what the yield is at, or is that a 0%?
No, I saved this for us to do on this call. So I didn't really run any yields because I knew that would be your forte. We can find that out together.
Yeah, exactly. So on this one, you're going to have 33 payment. Basically, here's the arrears, and it's just being paid in equal installments over 33 months, right? So for 33 months, you're going to have 406 plus the 594, You're going to have $1,000 a month, right?
Correct.
And how much did you? I guess we're going to have to do this on uneven cash flows. But how much did you pay for the note?
$26.31. $20,631.
Okay, so 20,000. Okay, so basically you're under 50 cents, 50% of ITV. So if this is worth over 50 and you paid 20, let's just 20 divided by 50, you're at 40 cents, and that's excellent, right? I think that's great. I mean, that's reasonable. I mean, I've heard people buying at 60 or 70 cents on these, which I think is crazy. But so basically, you're in it, and I want to, catch this the uneven cash flows here. So let me make some. So one time. Oops, where did I get that number? Tell me again what you put into it.
20,631.
631, and I'm going to make that a negative number because that went out of your pocket. And then we're going to have $1,000 that comes in 33 times. And then after that, we're going to have $594 that comes in. How many times? Do you know right off the top of your head? Is that's the one that goes out to 2043, right?
Yes, correct.
So basically, we have 3 years minus. So we've got 27 years. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
We got 27 years times 12 is 324. Does that look right? So you put out 20,631 once, you're at 40% of the value of the collateral. You're getting 1,000 33 times, and then you still have 324 payments of 594, assuming everything goes completely according to plan, which we know is kind of not always goes that way.
Probably not going to happen.
So
he defaulted like about 2 times.
Let's see what the rate of return is on that. That's over a 52% yield on that. Now, that's that's what I call an active investor return, wouldn't you?
I think so too. And what initially drew me to this loan because of the modification that was done in 2013. That made it like a new loan. So I was going to be getting mostly interest on the loan like that. Even right now, the month of January, I got like $79 went to his principal, and all the rest was for me.
Right. So this is phenomenal, and you have a lot of your own blood, sweat, and tears into getting this kind of thing. It's not like someone just served you up on a platter and said, "Hey, how about this?" You worked for it, and you deserve it. Right?
I did. I had to talk to lawyers, attorneys, everything for this because it was a lot of issues where I was like, okay, if I think in my mind, like, okay, you've held this long. Why didn't you foreclose? Why didn't you do this? Why is this still here? Waiting for me. And it's kind of like it makes you think that something is wrong with this deal. So you dig in more, you dig in more, you dig in more. So I even went to researching the time of the housing bubble, finding out how things worked back then. And I went to different websites where if you're on this list, they can't foreclose. I just read like a heap of information, learning stuff about this, just to get rid of the things that I was afraid of, just to learn more and be more knowledgeable. I spoke to attorneys like, do you think I can even foreclose on this? That's the most thing because this person has defaulted like 2 times. So will I be able, if it comes to that, would I be able to do this? And I talked to lawyers and attorneys, and the MERS thing, like, literally scared the heck out of me. Like the state of California, if there's MERS on the loan, the judge is automatically throwing it out of the court. You know what I mean? So I found out things like that through speaking with attorneys. And as I found out more information, I became more comfortable.
Gotcha. So, and just how did you pick what attorney you were going to talk to? Because, usually if you talk to 100 attorneys, you're going to get 100 different opinions. So how did you navigate that gauntlet?
I got a recommendation of an attorney that I wanted to actually wipe and go through the loan to check every phase of the loan that I was going to pay additionally for them to do that. And I got a recommendation to an attorney that does that.
Okay, so this is fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing it. What I hear is that because you weren't afraid to consider non-performing, and then because you weren't afraid to learn more about BK and consider that, and learn that you put together a really good deal here, right? So
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. So would you be willing, if anybody else in our community wanted to contact you, and it's not the wider audience of our virtual coffee, I'm talking about just the inner circle, would you be willing to communicate with any of our members? And if so, would you provide
absolutely
your phone number and email address for people in our community if they just want to pick your brain or work with you on something?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then I'm going to write that down right here.
Working on a team is absolutely better than working individually. You can split up tasks and you can learn more, share experiences.
Yeah, and really, this is my vision for this community is really about group intelligence and sharing and networking together. So, what's your phone number, Kyoka?
504-233-9479.
And your email address?
Key, Asset Consulting @gmail.com.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being a very valuable and generous member of our community. I appreciate it deeply from my heart, and you stepping up to share this, and for all of us. Like I have never dealt with, besides someone using it just to stall for a few months on a foreclosure, I haven't dealt with this personally. So I really appreciate you bringing this to the table as you're learning it. That's the thing that's fun to me, is like, you're not just going to learn it just for the philosophical, theoretical knowledge academically. You're actually learning it through doing it, and I think that's really, really powerful. So
yeah.
Thanks
and I
again.
guess I can't give all the positive without a little tad bit of the negative, is which going through this process, like I've always said, I want to be the one to provide home ownership or to assist in you gaining the American dream, not really the person that's going to take it away. So all through this process, moments arise in my mind like, okay, what are you doing? I'm crunching numbers, and I'm crunching numbers from the aspect of being able to take somebody, property, exit strategy, because that is the exit strategy. You know what I mean? You foreclose on it, and you need to know what would happen if you foreclose on it. So I have to run through those scenarios. And then it's kind of like sad moments like that. Like, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to take anyone's property. So
yeah,
you run through those sad moments occasionally.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, because so what I hear you saying is that you really share the value of, say, hey, I want to be part of the solution. I want to be the good guy. I want to help people get into homes and stay.
Absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
Kyoka, let me just ask you this. Are you a parent? Do you have kids?
No.
No? Do you know anyone who has kids?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times I come back to what makes a successful parent. If I'm just friends with my kids, am I really in the long term doing them the best benefit always, just to be their friend? Or do I have to do tough love? Because do you know what I'm saying? Because what I
totally.
Yeah, what I learned in terms of, just on a personal level with my primary relationship with my wife, and also as a parent, parenting 4 children, there are 2 main principles that basically, when I got a lot of, we got a lot of therapy, marriage and counseling, and, we were always trying to better ourselves and learn how to be better parents. And I had a really great gal that worked with us for several years, and she said, all relationships come down to this: direct, nurturing, and clear boundaries. Okay, so this is what makes for, I don't know how to put a bullet point on here. Axel, you'll make this look better anyway. But everything comes down for a healthy relationship. There has to be direct, nurturing, but clear boundaries, right? And so I take that, what was successful in my my relationship of 22 years now with my wife, and having excellent relationships with all 4 of my young adult children. I've been blessed to have that success, and so I take that sort of mentality into my business. So, like, if I'm a landlord, yes, I have to be fair, but I also have to have very clear boundaries. And if I'm a lender, if someone owes me money, yes, I have to be compassionate and fair, but I have to have clear boundaries. That's just the nature of any type of relationship in my mind, including these professional ones. And so you're actually not doing people a favor if you don't provide accountability and have clear boundaries. Yes, compassion, but there are times when you're actually giving clear feedback, because here's what's not fair, is because when you have a heartbeat on both sides of the transaction, you're not just some federally funded hedge fund that got their money from a bank bailout, right? You actually earned your own money. So if you are not honored and the money that you've put in is not honored, then the other person, it's not fair. You have to balance it, right? So if one person is getting too big a piece of the pie or not doing their part, then that's taking money out of your pocket, and that's not fair, because you have to be directly nurturing with yourself as well as other people. So there's a real careful balance in my mind, between direct nurturing and clear boundaries. So I always come back to that when I'm not sure. It's like, have I been willing to be fair? Have I been willing to be flexible? And can I hold the clear boundary and say, we agreed to this, you're not doing it, and here's the consequences. To me, that is not being mean. That is actually providing a service, because we all need clear feedback in order to learn and grow and evolve on this planet. That's just my philosophy. So I've had times when I've had to just be the bad guy. I've had to just be the hard ass, and it's not easy or fun, but it is a really necessary and important part of growing up. If my kids just got away with everything and I never, I said no, but it didn't mean no, I would have raised a bunch of maniacs, right?
Wow, you make me feel so much better.
Right. So it's extremely important, and so I don't know. That's just my my take on that. So, but anyway,
It makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And all right. Well, this has been a fantastic community meeting, transaction review and calculator practice, and I'll just go ahead and bring this up. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I appreciate all of you for showing up, taking your time to be here. And if anyone else in the community would be willing to step up and do one of these presentations, I invite you all day long. That'd be fantastic. Just one other thing I want to say that's coming up is, we're in the process of setting up discounts to land trust training from Randy, and Buddy Broom has got a really great financial calculator series, and that I've negotiated a discount for my members, so look for that coming up down the road. And okay, well, this is we're already well into 2017, so let's make it the best year ever. I'll catch you guys next time. And Axel, thanks again for your presence and tech support in the background here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kyoka. Have a good day. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.